Hi everyone, today I'm going to be doing my February wrap-up. I actually filmed this video and then I watched it again and I didn't like it, so I'm filming it again. So here are the books that I read in February. So I read 9 books in February, so yay! Anyway, so the first book that I read was actually an audiobook, and it's The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale. I've been trying to vary my reading a bit, so I wanted to do some more middle grade books, and I kept hearing that The Goose Girl was really good, and I read a couple of Shannon Hale's books, and I really liked them, so I was like, yes, I will read that one, and I really enjoyed it. The Goose Girl is about this girl. She's a princess, and she's going to go to this other kingdom to marry the prince there, but on the way, her handmaiden, her servant, stages a coup and switches places with her, so the servant girl goes to the kingdom as the princess, and the princess ends up being a goose girl. And then it's what happens from there. It was really good. It's middle grade, so the writing is fairly fast-paced. I would definitely give it a 3.5 stars out of 5. There was a lot of funny parts. It just draws you in as a fairy tale, so I liked it. Another middle grade book that I read is another kind of fairy tale in the fairy tale genre, is the book one for The School for Good and Evil. And I kept seeing this around, and I kept hearing it was good, so I had to read it. It's about these two girls, Sophie and Agatha, and they live in a world where the fairy tale characters go to a school for good or go to a school for evil, and then that's where you learn to be good, or that's where you learn to be evil, and then after you graduate, that's when you go into the fairy tale. So all her life, Sophie thinks she's going to go to the school for good, Agatha thinks she's going to go to the school for evil, and when they finally get to the school, they're actually in different houses than they think. So Agatha goes to the school for good, and Sophie goes to the school for evil. And it's what happens from then. Like, am I really evil? Or, wait a minute, I thought I was evil. So it was very fun. I would definitely give this a 4 stars out of 5. The writing is very, very easy and fast-paced, and what I liked about the writing too was that there's lots of homages to fairy tales, like throughout the series. I don't want to give too away because this is a series of like 3-4 books, but just the fight against good and evil gets better throughout the story. So this is by Simone Ciarni. So I would give this 4 stars out of 5. So it was very good. So continuing on, reading some different types of books, I read a biography of the Romanov sisters by Helen Perpot. I have always been interested in history, and especially the story of Anastasia. There's the Broadway show that's just out of Anastasia. I watched the cartoon as a kid. A lot of people know about the youngest Romanov sister, but they don't really know a lot about the other sisters. So when I saw this, I had to get it. And this was such a well-written book and well-researched book. So this is the book, and all these are her footnotes right here. So she did so much research, and it's pretty small writing too. So you'll be reading something, and she'll put where she got it, like this letter, and then she'll put her source. So I really like this book because not only was it really well researched, it made you, it made me want to research them on my own also. I didn't realize how like connected they were to the British royal family. So then I went online and I found pictures of like Queen Victoria holding the oldest child. It was like, wow, I didn't even know that these pictures existed, but because she mentions them in the book. And the way she writes, there's very few people I feel who can write history and write it well, because sometimes they get lost or they get on little rabbit trails. But the way she writes it, it's very clear, very well researched. I actually give this book a 5 out of 5 stars because I really enjoyed it. So there's that one. The next couple books I read were kind of romance books because for Valentine's Day. The first one was Rainbow Rowell's Landline. This is kind of more one of her adult books. And this is a story about a lady named Georgie. And she's going through kind of a difficult time in her marriage. It's Christmas time and she's staying at work to do work while her family, her husband and her kids, go to visit relatives. And while she's away for them, she sees this old-time rotary phone, and she calls them on it, but she doesn't. But it's a phone to the past. So she talks to her husband, but it's her husband in the past, and it's kind of a sci-fi. Doctor Who says it best. It's a wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey type of story, but it's really good, and it's her falling in love with her husband again, which was really cute. What I liked about this one is that the ending, it's not one of those like lovey-dovey happy ever after endings, but it was an ending more realistic, but it was an ending of hope, which I really like. So the story didn't leave you like, oh, but it left you like, oh, okay, good, there's hope, there's like this and this and this. So I actually really liked it. I give this a 4 out of 5 stars. So Rainbow Rowell's Landline. The next one, The Statistical Probability of Love at First Sight by Jennifer Smith. I read one of Jennifer Smith's other books. I think it's Windfall. That was in a uppercase box. And I really liked it. So I saw this one, and I thought I would like it, but I did not really like this book. This is a story of two people. A girl named Hadley and a boy named Oliver. And this takes place within 24 hours. And Hadley is going to London to her dad's wedding because her parents have divorced. And she sits next to Oliver, and they get to know each other on the plane ride. And then what happens when they land in England. And it had a lot of cute parts, like, aw. But the characters just didn't grip you as much as Windfall and her other books. I don't know, maybe it's because it only takes place within 24 hours that you're like, okay, I want to know more about the characters. But a lot of the stuff fell flat, and there was a couple times where it's like, okay, why did they do that? So I would give it maybe a 2 out of 5 stars. So, yeah, The Statistical Probability of Love at First Sight. The next one is I read the next book in the series that Amanda Grange did, rewriting Jane Austen stories through the eyes of the hero, and this one is Mr. Knightley's Diary. I love this series. It's really good. If you like Jane Austen, you will definitely like this series. I think I read Henry Tilney's Diary and Captain Wentworth's Diary, and this one definitely rewrites or retells the story of Emma very well. I just love the characters, and Amanda Grange does so good at staying true to Jane Austen and staying true to the characters. So that's why I liked it. So, I would definitely give this a 4 out of 5 stars. The next one I read was Marissa Mayer's Wires and Nerves. This is a graphic novel in part 2, and I guess her duology of Aiko. So it's This one's pretty thick. So this book continues the story of Aiko, the droid from the Lunar Chronicles series, and she is going on her adventures to help her friends and keep peace in the galaxy. I really like that the characters from the Lunar Chronicles are still in the story, so it kind of makes you feel that it's another extension of the Lunar Chronicles universe. Aiko is very fun and feisty. I really enjoyed this series. So if you like the graphic novels and if you like the Lunar Chronicles series, you'll definitely like this one. I would give this definitely a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So Wires and Nerves, Gone Rogue. So, yeah. So the next one I read was The Hazelwood, a novel by Melissa Albert. You've seen me mention it a couple times on here. This is a story about a girl named Alice, and her grandmother has written these very dark fairy tales, and once her grandmother dies, her mom gets kidnapped, and it looks like it's characters from her grandmother's fairy tales that have taken her mom. So she has to go and try to find out what has happened. I enjoyed this book, not as much as I thought I would, but I did enjoy it. There's maybe about 20 pages that kind of got a little long. But besides that, I love all the homages to fairy tales in here. And I love all the homages to books in here. She'll make a little reference like, oh, I really wanted to go to school today because we were going to taste Turkish delight. So there's a little nod to like the Narnia stories. Or, she'll say, oh yeah, there was breadcrumbs on the street. Or, just something like that. So I definitely enjoyed it with that. I believe this is going to be, there's going to be several more books in this series. And the ending definitely made you feel like, okay, there's more to come. What's going on? I want to know the rest of the story. It wasn't that big of a cliffhanger, but definitely, or I should say, there's no cliffhanger, but it definitely left you wanting more. I would give this a 3.5 stars out of 5. So yeah, The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. And the last book I read was The Perfectionist by Sarah Shepard. I have been kind of researching duologies, and I saw this one that people kept saying that it was really good, and it was very, very good. I would definitely give this a 4 stars out of 5. This is a story about 5 girls who, during class one day, it's their senior year, but during class one day, they talk about murdering one of their classmates. So they go to the party where they're going to do it, but then they don't kill him. But he ends up dead, and in exactly the way that they were planning to do it. So all of them are like, oh dear, we're going to be in really big trouble if they find out that this is how we wanted to do it. We didn't do it, but what's going to happen? So it's this, it's kind of like the investigation of that these girls do of figuring out who actually killed their classmate. It was really good. I'm almost done with book 2, and it's, yeah. So I will probably talk more about it in my next wrap-up video, but book 1 definitely left you wanting to read the second book, and it was super good. The writing is fast-paced. If you liked, she's the author of Pretty Little Liars, so if you like that TV show, if you liked murder, mystery, drama, you'll like this one. So those were the 9 books that I read in February. Which were some of the ones that you read and that you enjoyed? Let me know in the comments below. Hope you have a great day. Like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks. Bye.